Hello, hello, everybody in UK Health Radio Land. I'm Liz Larson, and I'm here today with some special guests, but I'm always here with,
Bill McKenna.
hey, Bill McKenna, how are you today?
Excellent. I can't tell you how excited I am for our two guests, a phenomenal book that you're going to love to hear about.
Oh my gosh, this really is a special show. It's all about kids. And our two special guests are Barbara Lamb and Mary Edwards, and they have created really the most unique book. It is so amazing. It's called Kids Adventures with ET Friends in Space, and it is based on real accounts. So, welcome, Barbara.
Thank you.
Hi, and welcome, Mary.
Hi, good to see you.
Hi. So let me introduce these two. So Barbara Lamb, for those of you who don't know, is a world-renowned psychotherapist. And she is one of the world's premier regressionists, but she specializes in regressing people who have had experiences with, you might call them an abductee or experiencer, but with UFOs. So that's incredible. She's conducted more than 4,000, that's 4,000 hypnotic regressions. I don't even know that I've had that many days. And she's revealed details of people's real encounters with extraterrestrial beings. And I have to say, the thing that I love so much about Barbara, I've watched her for many years on many shows, is that she is really matter of fact about this. She is so serious and so certain, that's not a word, certain about this. And I love the way she presents it. It's very detailed and scientific. So for most of the people that Barbara has regressed, these experiences begin during childhood and involve many different species. That's incredible, right? And beings from other planets. So that is our dear Barbara Lamb. And we also have with us the amazing Mary Edwards. Mary is an artist and an interior designer, and Mary is the artist, the illustrator in this book. So when you see the book, you'll see her beautiful artwork. She likes to bring the outdoors indoors to include the beauty of the natural world into her environments. And she was just sharing with us off camera that the San Francisco area has influenced that a lot. She's worked on many projects over the decades, from homes, hotels, hospitals, and the International Space Station. Not everyone can say that. That's something to put on a resume, right, Mary? Her father and grandfather were rocket scientists who sparked her interest in outer space. All right, so I don't even know where to start. There's so much here. So Barbara, let's start with you. Would you just tell us a little bit about you and tell us how this book, how it came to be? What gave you guys this idea and what put you on the path to creating it?
Well, I have been doing this work since 1984. That means I've been doing the regression therapy work since then. I started out with regressing people to past lives and still occasionally do that. But in 1991, a young woman came to me very traumatized and distressed because she was having unusual beings coming into her room at night and taking her away on some of those occasions. Her mother found me and asked if I would please do regression work with her, because all she could remember about those encounters were just the first very few moments. And so part of her distress was not only having unusual beings who were not human there, but that she didn't know what happened after those first couple of moments. So anyway, I worked with her, and that was very successful work, with her concluding at the end of 6 sessions that she felt privileged and honored to be taken by these unusual beings whom we refer to as extraterrestrial. Some people call them aliens. I prefer extraterrestrial as the term. And anyway, that was very encouraging for my working with that particular condition. And shortly after she came, there were about 4 other people who came that year, 1991, with the same situation, that they had been visited by unusual beings and taken away for a while, and not knowing very much about what had happened after those first few moments. So I worked with them in regression too. And then people just kept on coming. And as you said, it's over 4,040 people now. And that number keeps getting added on to, because people continue to come, new people who've had these unusual experiences. So uh, that has been a very, very big part of my therapy work for all these years. And then along the way, of course, I met children who were having these encounter experiences. And then very often, when I would be working with an adult person, that person would sort of be recounting the unusual things that had happened in their lives. And they would usually mention, even when I was a child, I would be aware of unusual things happening at night, unusual beings. And they had a whole variety of reactions to that. And many adults did regressions where they went back to 1 or 2 or 3 of those childhood incidents. So when I met Mary Edwards, which was a very happy thing for me, Mary was talking about how she was hoping to inspire children to be interested in space. And she loved everything about space. And so I thought, well, what a creative, wonderful thing to do, write a book about, for children, about being interested in space. And as we were talking about that more and more, I suddenly thought, oh my God, we should have a book about children's extraterrestrial experiences, because I knew of so many of those, from regressing people and talking to people about their childhood experiences. So that's why we got together to create this book, Kids' Adventures with ET Friends in Space. Now, I will say that people have had a huge variety of reactions to these beings coming into their room or their backyard or their playground or wherever the experiences seem to start. And some of these children think of the beings who are coming as their friends, special friends. And they notice after a while, as they talk about these things, that none of their other Earth friends have visitors like that. And very often, when they will talk to their parents about these visitors, the parents say, oh, that must be your imagination. Or, oh, you must have had another one of those dreams. Or it's an imaginary friend. Because so often parents just don't know, and I don't blame them. They just don't know that there is this phenomenon going on. And sometimes those parents themselves, or at least one of the parents, very likely has had those kinds of encounter experiences themselves. And yet they haven't known what to do with it. They've had no one to talk to about it either. And so they just kind of put a lid on it and try to not think of it, try to bury it, so to speak. And so Mary and I thought it would be wonderful to have a book geared toward children and illustrated in a way that children could relate to. And it would be sort of validating the children's experiences and also opening up conversation between children and their parent or grandparent or babysitter or whomever might be reading this book to the child. And so we want validation, we want affirmation, we want to give a voice or invite a voice of a child to be able to talk about these things. So we have chosen 18 different scenarios to show in the book by pictures and captions under the pictures. 18 different scenarios of things that children I know from my work with them that they have experienced. And all of these experiences that we presented are positive because even though some children are very frightened about having unusual beings coming into their room and taking them away, but usually when they find out, primarily through the regression work, when they find out what happened with those beings, it has a whole different look on it. They realize that a lot of those experiences have been fun and amazing and educational and helpful, like not only learning very wonderful psychic abilities from these beings with other children present on the craft, but in many, many cases being healed and being taught how to heal people back here on Earth. So when children realize that what might have seemed scary and mysterious at first turned out to be really worthwhile and sometimes even loving and supportive, it really puts a whole different look on the phenomenon.
Yeah. Actually, speaking of the look of it, we have Mary with us, who's responsible for these beautiful images. So I want to ask you, Mary, how did you know what these experiences might look like to put them into illustration? You're muted there, Mary. Let's have you.
Well, here is a picture of the cover of our book. That's me in the middle as a little girl who actually had an experience as a child. And if you can see some of the inside pages, I'll just show you real briefly a couple of them that Barbara and I worked on for the last year to just explain and work on all the many different experiences that we thought children might like to learn about with these friendships that they had. But so anyway, I'll just talk about my background a little bit. I got a BFA in interior design and I did art for a long time and interior design for 50 years. And part of my 50 years of design was designing not only the International Space Station, the first one 35 years ago. It was unbelievable to work out of Moffett Field and Johnson Space Center. And one of my contributions that I did with our team was to make sure that we could somehow scientificate pupillary dilation, heartbeat, the whole environment within an isolated and confined environment in space, floating from a mobile home park every day till night, every hour and a half. And actually talking to friends recently this year about being stuck at home, there were a lot of similarities of de-stressing astronauts that we did 35 years ago to what people were going through over the last year, being isolated and confined at home, living on top of each other without ever having the experience, the knowledge of how to have boundaries, a lot of very similar situations that kids have been going through all year, difficulties with their parents. So after working at NASA for many years, back then I wanted to design a book for kids to share with children even back then. But my experiences were growing up with a rocket scientist father and grandfather who I started painting rocks when I was 5 and 6 years old. To express myself about my passion for my inner outer world of what I was experiencing. My mother's father was an architect, so I actually grew up with, my mom was an artist, so I grew up with outer space and inner space. And this passion started when I was a little girl, and my dad would lie down and tell me stories at night about the O-ring, about the reentry systems, about what it was like. And we'd sit out on our patio in Chicago on Lake Michigan and stare at the stars. So that started a lot of my childhood passion that turned into adult reality, from being a daughter of a rocket scientist whose mom and my sisters weren't interested in at all. So I wrote NASA at age 8 to be trained to be the first woman astronaut. And they actually wrote me back in 1960 and said, "So sorry, Mary Edwards." And I'm sure they probably know who I was by then because of my family business, my parents' business, my father's business, and said, "Sorry, we can't." But eventually I did get to work on the International Space Station, which was a dream come true for 5 years out of Moffett Field and Johnson Space Center. And since then, on and off, I've taught design, I've taught art to 6 to 12-year-old children on the side. It was always my passion to help inspire other kids about how I got inspired by my father and my grandfather sitting and talking to me about the moon and the stars and space and the propeller engines. My dad was at Princeton with Albert Einstein and was in his imagination class in 1941 and 42 before he took off for the war to be a pilot in the Aleutians. But some of the stories he would tell me as a child really triggered me and sparked my interest in not only propulsion and the physicality of it, who else was out there. And Dr. Werner von Braun worked for his company. I knew Dad was involved only later on in life, that he was involved in secret space and did a lot of work with the government and the NASA and the CIA from the 1950s to the 80s. So actually, I have just started unfolding that. I just turned 70, and only in the last many years have I really realized that he was part of secret space, that I did go, and I've been remembering the memories of me being on craft at age 5 with little gray men, little grays in bright, cold, chilly sort of environment. Barbara's regressed me on that. It's been difficult because I know I was blocked by some of the government sources that they do. So I can't remember a lot of that, but I went on craft at age 5. So I remember what they look like. And then I went back at age 6 and at 10, and I've had many other trips since then. But it was my work at NASA, my childhood of being really read to and knowing that the power of art and drawing and communication was of utmost importance. My dad would be gone 4 to 5, 6 months down doing testing or Cape Canaveral. So whenever he came home, I'd say, "Dad, you've been gone forever. Can you please read a book, and can we do some drawings on spaceships?" So we'd sit and draw little things. Little did I know, that he was big deal in the government and all these things. But he never would talk to me about these dreams that I've had for all of my 70 years. So part of what the purpose of writing this book was, particularly to me, and of course I found Barbara, who had this incredible experience, was to really help people like me, other people who have had these experiences, who were shunned or not spoken to or not made believable. I brought it up for my whole lifetime, even to my mom's deathbed 2 years ago at age 98. I said, "Mom, why couldn't you ever tell me about it?" And she never said anything. But I know through channeling and regressions and all the different work I've been working on for a long time, that they were not allowed to speak about it. So part of my trauma in my life has been not being validated as a young girl, thinking we had this incredible family, which we did, that was loving. We traveled the world. We went to Stonehenge when I was 10 years old. We go to Machu Picchu. We go to Africa. But all I really wanted to know was what these weird dreams were about. So the purpose really of this book, with Barbara's experience and my long-term obsession about getting something out there, and we met at the perfect time. Barbara and I totally clicked. And with her vast experience and over 4,000 regressions, and my experience too myself, of feeling all alone and totally isolated and basically being lied to, which was what happened back in the olden days of space. I'm now so relieved to be able to write this book with Barbara so we can share our experiences personally, and we're both experiencers, as we know too, to help others who have had experiences that maybe weren't validated. So by sitting down with a book with positive, colorful, friendly, simple stories that are non-threatening, I was up there and I know I'm part of humanity to help it. Barbara is too. That's why we're doing the book. I survived. I'm a happy person. I'm just so relieved now to be able to start the ripple effect that started as a little girl for me. And with Barbara's lifetime of experience, that we together could create a book that will really share with adults and kids and parents of all types the importance of discussing things together, sitting on a bed, communicating about fears, about dreams, about remembrances, to really help relieve those shunned and dark, scary dreams and memories that I had and thousands and millions of other people had. I was also part of the hybridization program, and I have 8 hybrid kids on Earth and in Craft and up in the Pleiades. And evidently, when I was on Craft at age 5, I saw my father up there with me. And now just with Barbara and talking about it the last few years, I realized that he was part of the hybridization program and part of a unique DNA strand that our family has had since the early 1700s. After talking to Barbara and many other people over the years to try to unpack my weird life with these things.
That's great. That is great. Mary,
So anyway, and my daughter also worked at NASA. So it's been a long haul and a fascinating, revealing as the world gets to unveil the disclosure. We're going to help many other people, hopefully, to do.
Absolutely. Absolutely fascinating. Barbara, tell us about, if you could, tell us about some really, what are the kind of the really interesting things that children, when they're interacting with these other species, tell us about what there's, kind of the categories of experiences. You had mentioned one of the categories being that they're being trained in special abilities, or being able to be telepathic, or different things that might be really beneficial to them. Do you have anything there? You're on mute.
So I just want to jump in while Barbara's trying to get back on. The book is illustrated. So there was a part for which you and UK Health Radioland wouldn't have been able to see, but on YouTube you will. It's a beautifully bright colored book with not a huge amount of writing. The stories are simple and very easy to understand. Okay, we've got Barbara unmuted. Go ahead, Barbara.
Well, all right. I don't see myself, but that's okay. Yes, these children are taught quite a number of things. One of them is to levitate things with their minds. And so they find themselves sometimes sitting in a circle on a floor with other human children who have been taken to that experience, and some extraterrestrial adults standing by as teachers. And these children, human and extraterrestrial, are sitting in a circle, and they are moving things with their minds, not with their hands. And so they might start out with something really, really light, like a feather. And one child will focus on the feather and move it across the circle to somebody sitting opposite. And then that child will move it to somewhere else in the circle. And then as they grow proficient with that, they might go to something a little bit heavier, like a paper clip or a larger piece of paper. And gradually, they find that they can levitate with their minds only things as large as a basketball and send that basketball up through the air to the person sitting opposite in the circle. So that's just one example, but also they're very often asked to hold a cube, and the cube will have some kind of symbol indented on each side. And they are asked to memorize these symbols because the symbol will be used later on in understanding their language and their culture, that is, of the extraterrestrials. And sometimes they are taught to send information through their minds into the mind of one of the extraterrestrial beings. They're also taught to receive thoughts from the mind of an extraterrestrial being. In other words, they're developing the ability to do telepathy. And then they are taught psychometry and a whole variety of skills, including, as I mentioned earlier, the ability to heal other people or to heal animals when animals need it back home. And they're also taught star maps, sky maps of the different planets in space. And sometimes they are taken through a portal from this dimension into another dimension. And of course, that's an amazing experience. And they're taught about the different dimensions of reality. And sometimes they will meet beings who are barely able to be seen physically, but they're nonetheless there. And those might be beings from a different dimension as well. So that's a whole opening of their understanding that most children on Earth do not have the opportunity to learn about. So many of these children actually develop friendships with the children, extraterrestrial beings on the spaceships that they're taken to. And sometimes they develop friendships with hybrid children, that is, the hybrid children who live on the spaceships with the extraterrestrials. And to these children, it gets to be very familiar and all the same. They have friends who are just as good friends among the extraterrestrials and the hybrids as they have among their own human friends. And once in a while, I have known of a child who's been on a spaceship and has actually seen in one of these classes, has actually seen another child whom they know from school at home. And yet, when they come back to Earth, they don't seem to get together with that child and talk about these experiences. And that probably is because even though they're having these experiences, they are made to mostly not remember the details of the experiences. And I believe that the extraterrestrials sort of dampen or cover the memory of these children from these experiences on board the UFOs because they think it might be too confusing for the child to remember all of that while going through daily life on Earth. But the great thing is that whatever happened to anybody of any age with extraterrestrial beings, that's all recorded, as is everything, in the subconscious part of the mind. And so how wonderful that the subconscious part of the mind retains this information and will yield it when the person wants to in that process of deep relaxation, which we call hypnotic regression. And that's how people can find out the details of what happened even many, many years ago.
That's amazing, Barbara. I mean, it really is that, first of all, that you're acknowledging that this is happening with children. I think it's very, very important. You know, it's an unusual topic, and I'm sure there's many listeners out there who've heard many things that they've never heard before. And maybe this will spark their interest in learning more about it. And, you know, for kids who have experienced it and don't have anybody to talk about this book will allow that conversation to at least get started. And I want to
Yes.
ask, go ahead. I wanted to ask Mary quickly about this. So, Mary, you said you were an experiencer as a child and that you weren't validated. Moving forward, what do you think a book like this will do for kids in the future who are experiencers to have this validation?
Well, the purpose of our book, our mission with our book is to stimulate conversations between children and their parents or fathers or others, and to educate others as well. And that's why we want to help reduce the fear and stigma and really open up people to be open-minded about some of the experiences that can be shared. I went into a few different schools with this book, and they were saying, "Oh my God, I had a memory," or this or that. We hope it will open people's hearts and minds to other beings, to other children. I felt weird my whole life. I just wish somebody had said, "Mary, this is what happened. It's okay. You are not the only one." But anyway, hopefully we will touch and open up people's hearts and minds to the possibility and the vastness and the weirdness and the wonder and the beauty, because all people are different. I was made fun of being ADHD and dyslexic and not remembering anything as a child. And this wins the prize now for me telling a couple of my sisters that this is going on and a few of my friends. And now they're going, "Wow, it's fine." I said, "Look, read the news. It's in the newspapers. We are helping open the door of this disclosure to all our differences. It's from Black Lives Matter, the Me Too movement, all beings. There are good and bad humans. There are great and, good and bad ETs. They're good and bad everybody." So we try to have less judgment and more openness and loving kindness, as we are all one. And hopefully that's the direction. Barbara and I talk about this all the time, and I'm sure you do too, to try to help kids not be as judgmental, and to say, hey, everybody has a gift. Everybody's different. We're all different. Let's support it instead of diminish it and make fun of it and bully it. So I think we hopefully we can do that, even if it's a little ripple with a handful of people or a lot more.
That is amazing. Really, really beautiful. I think anything that we can do to support the mental health of our kids, our teens moving forward. So I wish we could talk about this all day long. But Mary, would you tell us, first of all, how do we find this book? How can people get a hold of the book?
It's on Amazon.com right now. If they can either go to BarbaraLambRegressions.com or to MaryEdwardsDesign.com, or go to Amazon.com and type in Real Adventures with ET Friends in Space. And it's for sale on Kindle. And it's also in soft cover and hardcover, depending upon what your interest or your cost level is. So Beautiful. We are on Amazon as of the last few weeks and are selling a lot of them, which is wonderful.
Awesome.
So
that's great. That's great. Hopefully our listeners will reach out and get this book. It's a beautiful little book. Barbara, I want to ask you, Can people get a regression with you? Can people still work with you if they
Yes,
wanted
they
to?
can. Yes, they certainly can. I'm still very busily doing that and love to do it. And it doesn't have to be a regression for this particular subject of extraterrestrial contacts. It could be for any interest that the person has in mind. People can find me best by going to my website. And then there's a place where you can type in that you would like a regression, and that will come to me by email. So the address to go to is www.barbaralamregressions.com. barbaralamregressions.com.
Beautiful. Thank you. And we'll make sure it's in the links for you guys. We want
Now,
to thank you so much for being here with us today. And as always, for our audience, we offer you something that you can take home and use today. So, our Bill McKenna has a beautiful process for children that helps them build their self esteem. And also, I just love this one because it really helps parents put out loving messages and be thinking and speaking lovingly to their children. So, over to you, Bill McKenna.
okay, well, all right. First thing I wanted to make sure I mention is that Barbara, you not only do your regressions in person, but you also do them online
Right.
on the computer via Zoom, right?
Yes, Zoom or Skype.
With Zoom or Skype. So you can get one. Our audience here is global. So I just wanted to let them all know that they can get a regression with you anywhere in the world because you can do it online. Okay, thank you. So here we go. What I'm going to teach you, the secret of the masters today, is an incredible ability to help your child. So how it works is that all of us, our subconscious rules 95% of what's going on in our lives. And your child, the way they're acting or reacting is because of their subconscious. The things that they feel, they can't help the way they feel, right? We're constantly trying to get them to act different, not to be angry, don't throw stuff, clean up your room, all these different things. Well, there is a very simple way to do this, and it really works. It's incredible. This process utilizes a very natural method. When you get hypnotized, you go from a beta brainwave, which you're in right now, that's when you're really conscious and awake. You go down and relax, like when you're watching TV or you're mesmerized driving your car, that's kind of an alpha brainwave state. And then just deeper than that is theta. In theta, when you're super relaxed, what happens in this brainwave state is that you will accept whatever it is as the truth. Children are naturally in this state from the ages of 0 to 7. But the technique that I'm going to show you today is going to help to change their behaviors. So when they're going to sleep, you can make up a list of 100 items, let's say. Your daddy, and you say 100, your daddy loves your mommy. 99, your mommy loves your daddy. And 98, daddy and mommy love you. 97, you're a great dancer. All of these different positive affirmations as they're going to sleep. So what happens is naturally they get more and more relaxed and go deeper and deeper to sleep. Their brainwave goes lower and slower. And then these things that you say become their reality. it is going to be the way that they feel. So you want to be very careful with this. When you do this, you want to make sure that what you say is positive, and you want to make sure you really think about it. What I'm saying is, would you want this person, your child, to feel this way at 50 years old? Because it is going to be the way they feel at 30, 40, 50, 60. It's going to be their reality. One way that you can also do this, if you have a child that, let's say, might be a little bit more resistant, is that you wait for them to go to sleep. Let's say they go to bed at 9 o'clock, right? By 10 o'clock or 10:30, you know they're deep in it. They're deep in it. And what you're going to do is you go in their room and you start to say their name softly and tell them, if you can hear my voice, raise your finger. And you start off softly. And then you increase your volume. Johnny, if you can hear me, raise your finger. And then nothing happens. And then you raise your voice a little bit more. Johnny, if you can hear me, raise your finger. And then Johnny, if you can hear me, raise your finger. And then eventually Johnny's going to raise his finger. Okay, what you did is you jumped him up. So he went from theta, and then he kind of came up a little bit. His consciousness started to become aware. And what you do is, oh, okay, Johnny, go ahead, go back to sleep. I was just checking on you. I just want to make sure you're okay. Johnny, go back to sleep. Johnny, you're beautiful. You are liked by all your classmates. You see the good in other people. Keep saying one thing after the next, all down 100 different affirmations. And when you say this, you can say it like, I am happy. Johnny is happy. You are happy. You say all of these different ways you say it will help their subconscious adjust. The last tip for this is that when you do this process, if you have the husband and the wife, or a male figure and a female figure say the exact same thing, I'm so loved, as the husband, the wife says, I am so loved. And so what happens is you're programming the masculine and feminine aspects of the child. The child knows that it's okay to love themselves in both ways. My daddy and my mommy, my masculine side, my feminine side. I can love me. I can feel good about me. Anyway, this process works so well if you are having problems with, let's say your child will only eat, spaghetti, or they'll only eat French fries. Whatever be the case, is you go in and you say, for example, I love trying new foods. New foods are so interesting for me to taste in my mouth. I like it. Some of them are hot, some of them are spicy. It's fun for me to explore with my sense of taste. This type of thing, what you'll find is after doing it about a week or less, you'll find that they are all of a sudden, I like trying new foods, Mommy. Hey, Johnny, would you like to try some broccoli? All right. It'll seem like a miracle, but it's just simply the reprogramming of our subconscious.
Okay, thanks so much, Bill. Thanks so much for that. We are right up against the time, guys. We took it end to end. Thank you, Mary Edwards, for being with us. Thank you, Barbara Lamb. Everyone, get out and get that book. We'll make sure the links are written here for you guys. Also, I forgot to introduce us. Bill and I are the Cogno Movement team. Check out cognomovement.com and what we have going on over there. We will see you guys next week with a brand new topic and a brand new tip. See y'all on the other side. Talk soon. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.